I am Samantha, 34 years old, and a financial advisor in Boston who built my career from nothing. This Christmas, I decided to surprise my family after years of strained relationships. I drove 6 hours through swirling snow, my trunk filled with carefully selected gifts for everyone. When I finally arrived at the familiar porch decorated with twinkling lights, Mom opened the door. Her face hardened instantly. "You weren't invited," she said coldly. "This is for family only." Behind her, I glimpsed the warm gathering I was being denied entry to. If you've ever felt the sting of family rejection, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe to join me on this unexpected journey of standing up for myself. Growing up as the middle child in a family of 3, I always felt overlooked. My older sister Rachel got attention for being the firstborn, the golden child who could do no wrong. My younger brother Michael was the baby of the family, coddled and protected. And then there was me, Samantha, caught in the middle, never quite fitting in and always trying to prove my worth. Our modest suburban home in Connecticut had 3 bedrooms. Rachel had her own room with the bay window and pretty curtains. Michael had the room with the built-in desk and shelves for his trophies. Despite rarely winning anything, I shared the smallest bedroom with storage boxes and seasonal decorations until I left for college. This arrangement perfectly symbolized my place in the family hierarchy. My mother Eleanor was the orchestrator of the family dynamics, a homemaker with unfulfilled ambitions. She channeled her energies into micromanaging her children. She played favorites openly, praising Rachel for maintaining AC average while criticizing me for an A-. Her passive-aggressive comments were legendary. "Not everyone can be as naturally beautiful as Rachel, Samantha, but your face has character," she once told me at my high school graduation. Dad worked long hours at his accounting firm and deferred to Mom on family matters. He was physically present but emotionally absent, nodding along with whatever narrative Mom created about our family. When I tried confiding in him about feeling excluded, he would pat my shoulder awkwardly and say, "Your mother means well." Despite this environment, I excelled academically. School became my refuge, a place where effort and results mattered more than family politics. I earned a full scholarship to college, studying finance while working part-time jobs. Nobody from my family attended my college graduation. "Rachel needs help planning her wedding that weekend," Mom explained, not even attempting to sound apologetic. After graduation, I moved to Boston and built my financial advisory business from scratch. Through intelligence, hard work, and genuine care for my clients, I established a reputation as someone trustworthy with money and advice. My business grew steadily, and by 30, I was more financially successful than anyone in my family had ever been. That success became both my connection to my family and my burden. When Rachel needed money for a lavish wedding to a man she'd known for 4 months, I provided it. When Michael totaled his 3rd car, I bought him a new one. When the family home needed a new roof, I paid for it. Each time, my financial assistance was accepted without much gratitude, treated as an obligation rather than generosity. "Well, you have the money," Samantha, Mom would say. "It's not like you have a family to spend it on." These barbs about my single status were frequent, despite my active dating life and fulfilling friendships. In my family's eyes, financial success without marriage was somehow a failure. The pattern continued for years. Family gatherings became opportunities to request money or expensive gifts. Conversations revolved around my siblings' lives, with minimal interest in mine unless it involved my ability to help them financially. I became the family bank, not the family member. 3 years ago, after a particularly difficult holiday season where I spent thousands on gifts that were barely acknowledged, I started therapy. Dr. Keller helped me recognize the unhealthy dynamics and begin setting boundaries. I stopped responding immediately to financial requests. I limited visits and phone calls. I started saying no. The reaction was immediate and hostile. Mom called me selfish. Rachel suggested I was having a midlife crisis. Michael accused me of thinking I was better than the family. The more I established boundaries, the more they pushed against them, escalating their demands and emotional manipulation. Family helps family became Mom's mantra, though the help only ever flowed in one direction. When I pointed this out during a tense phone call last summer, she hung up on me. Communication dwindled to occasional text messages, usually related to some financial need. Despite this deterioration, a part of me still longed for genuine connection with my family. Dr. Keller cautioned me about expecting changes from people who benefited from the current dynamic, but the approaching holiday season awakened a stubborn hope. Maybe, I thought, a gesture of goodwill could reset our relationships. Against my better judgment, I decided to surprise them for Christmas. I wouldn't announce my visit, eliminating the opportunity for them to create excuses or demands beforehand. I shopped carefully for thoughtful gifts. For Mom, a cashmere sweater in her favorite shade of blue. For Dad, a first edition of his favorite detective novel. For Rachel, a spa certificate for her and her husband. For Michael, high-quality noise-canceling headphones he had mentioned wanting. I booked a hotel nearby, not wanting to impose by expecting accommodation, but hoping to spend Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with them. I imagined warm reconciliation, meaningful conversations by the fire, perhaps even the beginning of a new, healthier chapter in our relationship. As I packed my car on December 23rd, I felt genuine optimism. The 6-hour drive gave me time to rehearse what I would say, how I would set gentle boundaries while still extending an olive branch. I practiced phrases Dr. Keller had suggested for maintaining composure in potentially triggering situations. I stopped at a bakery just outside their town, purchasing the chocolate orange cake Mom had always made for special occasions. Another peace offering, another attempt to speak her love language. The bakery box sat on my passenger seat, a fragrant symbol of my hopes for reconciliation. The snow started falling as I entered our hometown, covering the familiar streets with a fresh white blanket that seemed to offer the possibility of a clean slate. Christmas lights twinkled from houses I remembered from childhood, and for a moment, I felt like I was traveling back in time to a simpler period before money and adult expectations complicated our family bonds. I pulled onto our street just as darkness fell on Christmas Eve, the perfect time for a holiday surprise. I could see the glow of our family home ahead, warm lights spilling from windows decorated with the same old reindeer cutouts we had made in elementary school. My heart swelled with anticipation and nervous energy as I parked across the street. The December air bit at my cheeks as I approached the house, arms loaded with carefully wrapped gifts and the bakery box balancing precariously on top. The driveway was full of cars, more than just my parents and siblings. I recognized Rachel's silver SUV and Michael's recently purchased sports car that I had helped finance. Several other vehicles suggested a larger gathering than our usual family Christmas. The walkway hadn't been shoveled properly, and my boots sank into several inches of snow. The weight of the presents made balancing difficult, but I managed to reach the 3 stone steps leading to our front porch without falling. The house looked exactly as it had during my childhood Christmases. A colonial-style home with green shutters and a red front door, now adorned with the same pinecone wreath my mother had used for 20 years. Through the windows, I caught glimpses of movement. The silhouettes of people mingling, the twinkling of the Christmas tree lights. The familiar scent of pine and cinnamon wafted from the house, triggering a flood of memories. For a moment, I stood there, suddenly hesitant, a grown woman afraid of her own family's reaction. "You can do this," I whispered to myself, shifting the presents to free one hand. "You belong here too." I pressed the doorbell, hearing the same chiming melody that had announced visitors throughout my childhood. My pulse quickened as I waited, rehearsing my surprise greeting one final time. The porch light illuminated my face as the door swung open. My mother stood in the doorway, wearing a festive red sweater with a snowflake pattern. For a split second, her face registered surprise, her eyes widening slightly. Then, like a shade being drawn, her expression hardened, lips pressing into a thin line, eyes cooling to that familiar look of disapproval I knew too well. "Samantha," she said, her voice clipped. She made no move to open the door wider, her body effectively blocking the entrance. Behind her, I could hear laughter and the clinking of glasses. Christmas music playing from our old stereo system. Surprise, I managed, my voice smaller than intended. Merry Christmas, Mom. She glanced at the packages in my arms, then back at my face. No smile. No welcome. Instead, she straightened her posture and delivered the words that would echo in my mind for months to come. You weren't invited, she said coldly. This is for family only. The statement hit me like a physical blow. Family only. The implication was clear, devastating in its simplicity. I wasn't family. Not in her eyes. Behind her, I caught a glimpse of our living room. The Christmas tree stood in its usual corner, surrounded by presents. Dad sat in his recliner, a glass of eggnog in hand. Rachel was perched on the sofa beside her husband, laughing at something. Michael lounged on the floor near the fireplace. Aunts, uncles, and cousins filled the remaining space, some I hadn't seen in years. Someone called from inside. Who is it, Eleanor? My mother didn't turn around. No one, she replied, loud enough for everyone to hear. Just someone with the wrong address. Heat rushed to my face, burning against the winter cold. My fingers went numb, though whether from the temperature or shock, I couldn't tell. The bakery box suddenly felt impossibly heavy in my arms. Words failed me completely. What could I possibly say to counter such a fundamental rejection? How does one argue against being categorized as not family? I stood there, mute with shock, as my mother began closing the door. No explanation. No apology. Just exclusion, as definitive as a slammed door. Enjoy your evening, she added, almost as an afterthought, polite words dripping with dismissal. The door closed with a soft click that somehow hurt more than if she had slammed it. Through the frosted glass panel, I watched her silhouette turn and rejoin the gathering, leaving me alone in the cold. I don't remember walking back to my car. Somehow I managed to place the gifts and cake in the trunk without dropping them. My body operated on autopilot while my mind struggled to process what had just happened. I sat in the driver's seat, staring at the house that had once been my home. Watching shadows move behind curtained windows, everyone inside continuing their celebration as if I had never existed. The drive to the hotel passed in a blur. I checked in mechanically, thanking the receptionist who commented on the snow without really hearing her words. The room was generic and impersonal, beige walls and standard hotel artwork, a sharp contrast to the warm family gathering I had just been denied entry to. I placed my overnight bag on the luggage rack and sat heavily on the edge of the bed. Only then did the emotions break through. Tears came silently at first, then in heaving sobs that bent me double. Years of trying to earn love and belonging collapsed around me. The truth finally impossible to ignore or rationalize away. My phone chimed with a text message. For one irrational moment, hope flared. Perhaps Mom had regretted her words. Perhaps someone inside had asked about me. Perhaps there was an explanation. I fumbled with the phone, swiping through blurred vision to read the message from Rachel. Don't take it personally. You know how you are. How I am. The words echoed in my head. How exactly was I? Successful? Independent? Unwilling to be exploited anymore? Or simply unworthy of being considered family despite decades of financial and emotional support? This dismissive text somehow hurt more than the initial rejection. Not only was I excluded, but it was somehow my fault. I was expected to understand and accept it, to know my place outside the circle of belonging. Memories flooded back unbidden. 10-year-old Samantha sitting alone at the kitchen table with homework while Mom took Rachel shopping. 13-year-old Samantha being told there wasn't enough money for her school trip, only to discover Michael got a new video game system the same week. 16-year-old Samantha achieving National Honor Society. The certificate displayed not on the family fridge, but tucked away in my room while Michael's participation trophies dominated the living room shelves. The pattern had always been there. I had just refused to see it clearly, making excuses, trying harder, giving more. As if the right combination of achievement and generosity would finally unlock the love that should have been unconditional. I spent that night alternating between tears and numbing silence, staring at the hotel ceiling, replaying my mother's words and expression. Sleep came in short, restless bursts, interrupted by dreams of closed doors and family gatherings visible only through windows I couldn't open. By morning, my eyes were swollen, my throat raw. The hotel room felt both like a prison and a sanctuary. I couldn't bear to leave it and face the world, but its anonymous walls offered no comfort. Christmas Eve had become a nightmare. Christmas Day stretched ahead, empty and daunting. The worst part wasn't the loneliness. It was the realization that I had always been alone within my family. The rejection at the door wasn't a new cruelty. It was just the first honest interaction we'd ever had. Christmas morning dawned gray and cold, snow still falling in lazy flakes past my hotel window. I reached for my phone out of habit, half expecting to see messages of regret or explanation. There were none from my parents. Nothing from Michael. Just Rachel's dismissive text from the night before, glowing on my screen like an accusation. Against my better judgment, I opened social media. The algorithm, unaware of my emotional state, immediately displayed posts from my family. Rachel had shared photos late the previous night, tagged "Complete Family Christmas Gathering." The images showed everyone around the dinner table. Glasses raised in toast, faces flushed with holiday cheer. Complete family. The words stung more than they should have. I scrolled further, masochistically absorbing the evidence of my exclusion. There was Aunt Patricia from Florida, whom I hadn't seen in 3 years. Uncle Robert and his new wife, cousin Jessica and her children. Even Dad's old college roommate Frank had made the guest list. Everyone but me. This wasn't an intimate, immediate family gathering. This was an extended family celebration to which I alone had not been invited. The realization settled like a stone in my stomach. This wasn't an oversight. It was deliberate. I forced myself to put down the phone and take a shower, letting hot water wash away dried tears while trying to think rationally. As I dried off and dressed in the comfortable clothes I had packed for a family Christmas morning that would never happen, something shifted in my mind. For the first time, I allowed myself to see the situation without the filter of hope or obligation. My family had excluded me intentionally while continuing to benefit from my financial support. The contradiction was suddenly, blindingly obvious. I opened my laptop and began checking accounts, something I did regularly for clients, but had avoided doing for my own family connections. The truth revealed itself in rows of numbers and transaction histories. The joint account I had opened with my mother when I was 16, intended for emergency access during my college years, remained active. I had never closed it, and over time it had transformed into a resource she drew from regularly. The latest withdrawal had been 2 days ago. A significant sum with the memo, Christmas party supplies. My mother had used my money to fund a celebration I wasn't welcome to attend. Further investigation revealed more financial tentacles connecting me to the family that had just rejected me. I paid the utilities for the family home through automatic payments, an arrangement that started during a financial rough patch 5 years ago and had somehow become permanent. Electricity, water, internet, security system, streaming services. All billed directly to my accounts. I was an authorized payer on my parents' property taxes. I covered the premiums on their health insurance policies. I paid the monthly lease on Michael's sports car. I contributed to the vacation fund Rachel and her husband used for their annual trips. Credit card statements showed my siblings as authorized users on my backup credit accounts, privileges granted during various emergencies that they continued to use for everyday expenses. Restaurant charges, clothing purchases, entertainment, all flowing from my income to support their lifestyles. As I compiled the list, the total shocked me. Over the past year alone, I had provided more than $28,000 in direct support to family members who couldn't even include me in their holiday gathering. Extending the calculation over 5 years pushed the total to nearly $143,000. A knock at my door interrupted my financial archaeology. It was housekeeping, asking if I needed fresh towels. The young woman noticed my reddened eyes and asked if everything was all right. "Family issues," I said simply. She nodded with unexpected understanding. "Holidays bring it out. My mother hasn't spoken to me in 3 years because I married someone she didn't approve of." Her casual mention of such a painful situation, stated as a simple fact rather than a devastating wound, struck me. How do you handle that? I asked. I realized I can't control her choices, only my response, she said, handing me the towels. When I stopped trying to earn her approval, I found peace. Now, if she wants a relationship, the door is open, but on mutual respect, not her terms. After she left, I sat staring at the fresh towels, turning her words over in my mind. I had spent my entire life trying to earn approval and belonging through achievement and financial support. The previous night had proven definitively that this strategy had failed. I picked up my phone and called Taylor, my best friend since college. She answered immediately. Merry Christmas. How's the family surprise going? Her cheerful voice asked. It isn't, I replied, and found myself spilling the entire humiliating story. From the door closing in my face to the financial revelations of the morning. Taylor listened without interrupting, then said, Sam, I'm going to say something you might not want to hear. This isn't new behavior. They've been treating you like an ATM for years. I know, I admitted. I just thought if I kept trying, kept giving, that they'd eventually see your worth. Honey, they've always seen it. They just decided to exploit it rather than appreciate it. There's a difference between supporting family and being used by them. I've given them so much, I whispered. And what have they given you in return? Taylor asked gently. The question hung in the air. I couldn't think of a single example of reciprocal support, either emotional or financial, in my adult life. You know what makes me angriest? I finally said. They excluded me from Christmas, but had no problem using my money to fund it. So, what are you going to do about it? Taylor asked. The question crystallized something in me. For the first time since the previous night's rejection, I felt a spark of something other than hurt. Something that felt surprisingly like power. I'm going to stop enabling them, I said, the decision forming as I spoke the words. About time, Taylor replied. Want me to come over? No one should be alone on Christmas. I declined her offer, though it warmed me. I need to handle this first. I'll come by later, if that's okay. My door is always open to you, Taylor said. The contrast with my mother's closed door striking painfully. After we hung up, I sat with my laptop, looking at the list of financial connections between myself and my family. The anger that had begun as a spark was growing, replacing the hurt with a clarifying fire. I had been an enabler, and it was time to stop. I picked up my phone and called James Peterson, my attorney. Not expecting him to answer on Christmas Day. To my surprise, he did. Family law never takes holidays, Sam, he said when I apologized for the timing. What can I help you with? I explained the situation briefly, focusing on the financial entanglements rather than the emotional wounds. I want to legally separate my finances from them immediately. Am I within my rights to do this without notice? In most cases, yes, James confirmed. Joint accounts can be frozen by either party. Services you voluntarily pay for can be canceled at your discretion. Authorized users can be removed from credit accounts by the primary cardholder. As long as you're not breaking contractual obligations, you're on solid legal ground. His confirmation was all I needed. As hurt transformed more fully into resolve, I felt clarity I hadn't experienced in years. The path forward was suddenly obvious. Thank you, James. I'll call if I need further advice, I said, ending the call and turning back to my laptop with new purpose. The family that had deemed me unworthy of inclusion was about to discover exactly what life looked like without my financial support. It wasn't revenge I sought, but long overdue boundaries and the self-respect I had denied myself for years. As I began systematically severing financial ties, I felt something unexpected. Not guilt. Not doubt, but a profound sense of liberation. Each canceled payment and frozen account was a step toward reclaiming not just my money, but my worth. The hotel business center was empty on Christmas morning, giving me privacy as I spread my financial documents across the desk. Armed with my laptop phone and a determination I hadn't felt in years, I created a comprehensive spreadsheet documenting every dollar I had given my family. Loans never repaid. Gifts unacknowledged. Bills automatically paid. Credit card charges. cash transfers, insurance premiums, everything. The total made me wince. $143,622 over 5 years. Money that could have purchased a vacation home or funded my retirement account. Instead, it had disappeared into the black hole of family obligation, buying me nothing but continued exploitation. I studied the legal advice James had provided, confirming I was within my rights to withdraw financial support without notice. Then I created a strategic plan, prioritizing actions based on impact and urgency. First, I logged into the joint account I shared with my mother. The balance stood at $22,000, intended as an emergency fund, but regularly depleted and replenished over the years. I initiated a freeze on the account, preventing any withdrawals while I arranged for the balance to be transferred to my personal account. The system asked if this was due to fraud. I hesitated only briefly before clicking yes. Next came the utility services. One by one, I logged into electricity, water, internet, security, and streaming accounts. For each, I canceled autopay and removed myself as the responsible party. Some required phone calls, where I calmly explained I was no longer willing to pay for services at an address where I did not reside. No, I did not want to provide an alternative payment method. No, I did not want to leave a message for the homeowners. The credit card accounts took longer. I had to call each company separately to remove my family members as authorized users. Customer service representatives asked if there was a problem with the accounts. The arrangement is no longer suitable, I repeated, a phrase that felt like a massive understatement. One representative was particularly persistent. These users have been on your account for years, Ms. Wilson. Has something changed? Yes, I finally said. I've changed. I no longer wish to financially support people who don't respect me. His tone softened. I understand completely. Consider it done. As lunchtime approached, I had methodically worked through half my list. I ordered room service, something I rarely allowed myself despite my financial means. The club sandwich and fries arrived with a small candy cane on the tray, a reminder of the holiday I was spending alone in a hotel room. Yet strangely, I didn't feel alone. I felt empowered. Each financial tie I severed was like cutting a string that had been used to puppet me for years. With every cancellation, I reclaimed a piece of my independence. After lunch, I tackled the more complex financial entanglements. I wrote emails to the family business partners where I had invested capital, informing them of my intention to withdraw from ventures connected to my brother. I contacted the property management company that handled a rental property I had purchased primarily to provide my sister with passive income, instructing them to redirect all proceeds to my personal account effective immediately. I canceled the automatic transfers that deposited $500 monthly into Michael's checking account and $750 into Rachel's family fund. I removed myself as guarantor on 3 different loans. I canceled the premium credit monitoring service I provided for all family members. By mid-afternoon, I had created a family financial closure folder containing documentation of all changes made, confirmation numbers, and records of past support provided. This wasn't just about cutting financial ties, it was about acknowledging the truth of our relationship. Throughout the process, I experienced waves of conflicting emotions. Momentary guilt would surface, quickly replaced by the memory of standing alone in the cold while my family celebrated without me. Fleeting doubt would arise, countered by the recollection of Rachel's dismissive text. Each hesitation was overcome by the growing certainty that I was finally doing the right thing, not just for my finances, but for my self-worth. The most difficult moment came when I found myself hovering over the submit button to cancel the life insurance policy where my parents were beneficiaries. This felt different, more final somehow. I had purchased the policy 5 years ago, wanting to ensure my family would be taken care of if anything happened to me. Now I was acknowledging that the care had only ever flowed in one direction. I clicked submit and designated a charitable foundation as my new beneficiary. By late afternoon, I had completed every item on my list. The financial infrastructure that had connected me to my family lay dismantled around me, reduced to confirmation numbers and service termination notices. I felt drained but curiously peaceful. Like I had excised something unhealthy from my life. Anticipating the reaction to come, I set up auto responses on my phone and email. For calls and texts from family members, an automatic message would reply, "I am taking time for myself." For urgent matters, please email with the subject line urgent. For emails from family addresses, an autoresponder would deliver a similar message. These digital boundaries established, I closed my laptop and stood up, stretching muscles stiffened by hours of focused work. Outside, the snow had stopped, and weak winter sunlight glinted off the white landscape. Christmas Day was fading toward evening, and I had spent it engaged in perhaps the most significant act of self-care of my adult life. I returned to my hotel room and ordered dinner, selecting the holiday special of turkey with all the trimmings. When it arrived, I arranged it carefully on the small table by the window, poured a glass of wine, and sat down to my solitary Christmas dinner. Yet it didn't feel lonely. It felt like the first meal of a new life. One where I valued myself enough to stop accepting scraps of affection in exchange for financial support. One where I acknowledged that family should be defined by mutual respect and care, not DNA and obligation. I raised my glass in a silent toast to myself, to boundaries, to new beginnings disguised as endings. Then I ate my Christmas dinner with more appetite than I had expected, savoring each bite as if it were my first taste of freedom. After dinner, I took a long hot bath, allowing myself to relax for the first time in 24 hours. As I soaked in the steaming water, I realized I hadn't checked my phone since setting up the auto-responses. Part of me wanted to look, to see if anyone had noticed the financial changes yet. Another part, the stronger part, wanted to extend this period of peace before the inevitable storm. Piece 1. I left my phone untouched and went to bed early, suddenly exhausted by the emotional and logistical marathon of the day. As I drifted toward sleep, I wondered what tomorrow would bring, knowing that by morning, my family would certainly have discovered at least some of the changes I had implemented. Let them, I thought as sleep claimed me. Let them feel a fraction of the shock and betrayal I felt standing on that porch. Let them experience what it's like when someone you've taken for granted suddenly stops giving. For once, I slept deeply and dreamlessly. My mind and body released from the weight of familial obligation I had carried for so long. The persistent buzzing of my phone dragged me from sleep at 6:37 the next morning. Even from across the room where I had left it charging, I could see the screen lighting up repeatedly with incoming notifications. The storm had arrived. I took my time getting ready, brewing the in-room coffee and sipping it slowly while watching the winter sunrise paint the sky in delicate pinks and golds. Only after showering and dressing did I finally pick up my phone to assess the damage. The notification screen told the story at a glance. 17 missed calls from Mom. 23 from Rachel. 9 from Michael. 11 from Dad, which surprised me as he rarely called. 38 text messages. 14 voicemails, maxing out my mailbox. Several emails flagged urgent, despite my auto-response instructions. I scrolled through the text messages first, watching the progression of my mother's reactions like a time-lapse of emotional weather. 7:43 p.m., Christmas Day, the internet is out, and the streaming stopped. Is there an outage in the area? 8:17 p.m., Samantha, the utility company says our account is suspended. There must be some mistake. Call me. 9:04 p.m., why aren't you answering? We're trying to watch the Christmas movie and everything is shut off. 10:28 p.m., I tried to get cash for the emergency repairman and the joint account is frozen. This is very inconvenient. Call immediately. 11:46 p.m., what kind of game are you playing? Is this because we were busy yesterday? You're being incredibly childish. 12:03 a.m., your father is very upset. You're ruining everyone's holiday with this behavior. 2:17 a.m., Rachel can't access her credit card. Michael says his is declined too. If you're having financial problems, you should have just told us instead of this dramatic display. 3:42 a.m., I'm worried about you. Are you having some kind of breakdown? Do we need to come to Boston to check on you? 5:15 a.m. Samantha Catherine Wilson, this is completely unacceptable. We are your family. You don't just cut off family without warning. 6:02 a.m. The neighbors brought us candles. We had to explain our power is off because our daughter is having a tantrum. Is that what you wanted? To embarrass us? Rachel's messages followed a similar pattern, starting with confusion, progressing to accusation, and finally settling into panic as the financial implications became clear. WTF, Sam? Mom says you froze the accounts? My card just got declined at the gas station. Call me now. This isn't funny anymore. Jacob and I have dinner reservations tonight and no working credit cards. Mom is freaking out. Dad is talking about driving to Boston. What are you doing? Please tell me this isn't about the stupid Christmas Eve thing. That was Mom being Mom. You know how she gets. Sam, I have bills due tomorrow. I need access to the funds you promised. Are you trying to ruin my credit score? Because that's what's going to happen if you don't fix this immediately. Michael's contributions were shorter and more directly financial. Yo sis, my car payment is due in 3 days. Need the transfer. Card's not working. What gives? This is seriously messed up. I have plans that require money. Mom's losing it. Dad's stress isn't good for his heart. You need to stop this. You can't just pull financial support without warning. There are laws. I'll lose my car. Is that what you want? Dad's texts were the most surprising, as he rarely communicated directly with me except through Mom. Samantha, your mother is very upset. Please call home. Whatever disagreement you're having with your mother, this isn't the way to handle it. The power is out. Your mother says you're responsible. Please explain. I don't understand what's happening, but we need to discuss this as a family. Samantha, I've never asked much of you, but I'm asking now. Call home. The voicemails told the same story with increasing urgency and emotional manipulation. Mom's voice claimed she was having chest pains from stress. Rachel reported that her children were crying because the house was cold. Michael threatened vague legal action, then backtracked to pleading. The family group chat, which Mom had named Temp Chat years ago and never changed, was indeed on fire as dozens of messages piled up, family members talking about me rather than to me. Theories about my mental state and motivations flying back and forth. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, absorbing the collective panic without feeling any urge to immediately respond. The desire to apologize, to fix everything, to make them comfortable again, that familiar impulse that had driven me for years, was notably absent. Instead, I felt a strange calm, like a storm chaser who has finally caught up with the tornado they've been pursuing. The chaos was here, but I was watching it from a safe distance, no longer at its mercy. My phone rang again. Taylor. Holy shit, she said when I answered. Your sister just called me looking for you. She said you've had some kind of psychotic break and cut off all contact and financial support. She wanted to know if you were with me. What did you tell her? That I hadn't spoken to you since yesterday morning, which was true at the time. Then I asked why they were so concerned now when they wouldn't even let you in the door yesterday. She hung up on me. I laughed, the sound surprising me. Good for you. Are you okay? Taylor asked, her voice softening. Really okay? I'm better than I've been in years, I said, realizing it was true. I spent yesterday untangling my finances from theirs. It was long overdue. And how does it feel? I considered the question. Like putting down a heavy backpack I didn't realize I was carrying. I'm proud of you, Taylor said. It takes courage to stop being used. After talking with Taylor, I decided it was time to send one clear message to my family. I opened my email and attached the spreadsheet I had created documenting 5 years of financial support. In the body of the email, I wrote, "This spreadsheet details the financial support I have provided over the past 5 years, totaling $143,622. As of December 25th, I have terminated all ongoing financial arrangements. This decision is final and non-negotiable. I will not be accepting calls or texts at this time. I wish you all the best in making your own financial arrangements going forward. Samantha." I hit send, then set my phone to do not disturb mode. Whatever the reaction, I didn't need to witness it in real time. I packed my belongings and checked out of the hotel, planning to start the drive back to Boston. As I waited for the valet to bring my car, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Samantha. I turned to see my mother striding across the hotel lobby, my father, Rachel, and Michael trailing behind her. Their arrival was both surprising and predictable, a last-ditch effort to regain control. "We've been looking everywhere for you," Mom said loudly, drawing attention from other guests. We were so worried. The performance was for the benefit of onlookers, painting her as the concerned mother rather than the woman who had shut the door in my face 2 nights ago. "How did you find me?" I asked calmly. "Rachel tracked your phone," Michael said, then looked away when Mom glared at him. "We need to talk," Dad said, attempting his role as family mediator. "What you've done is very concerning." "What I've done?" I repeated, my voice level but firm. "What about what you've done? If this is about Christmas Eve." "You're blowing it completely out of proportion," Rachel said dismissively. "We didn't know you were coming. You should have called first." "You told me I wasn't family," I said, looking directly at my mother. "You can't reject me personally while continuing to expect my financial support." "I never said that," Mom protested, though her eyes shifted away from mine. "You misunderstood." I was simply surprised. "Mrs. Wilson?" The hotel manager had approached, alerted by the increasing volume of our conversation. "Is everything all right? Is this your family?" Before Mom could answer, I spoke. "No, these people were just leaving." I turned to the manager. "I've checked out and am waiting for my car. These individuals are not authorized to access my room or information." Mom's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Samantha, stop this nonsense immediately. We're your family whether you like it or not." "Family doesn't shut the door in your face on Christmas Eve," I replied quietly. "Family doesn't text that it's your fault for being excluded. Family doesn't only reach out when the power goes off and the credit cards stop working." "You can't just cut us off," Michael protested. "We depend on that support." "That's the problem," I said. "You should never have become dependent on me. I've enabled an unhealthy dynamic for years, and I'm done." "After everything we've done for you," Mom began, her voice rising. "What exactly have you done for me?" I asked, genuinely curious about what she would claim. She faltered, unable to produce specific examples. "We're your family. We gave you life. And I've given you $143,622, I replied. "I think we're even." The valet pulled up with my car, perfect timing for my exit. As I moved toward the door, Dad reached for my arm. "Samantha, please. We can work this out." For the first time, I saw genuine concern in his eyes, though whether for me or for the financial comfort I had provided remained unclear. "I'm open to building a new relationship based on mutual respect," I said, gently removing his hand. "But not today and not under these circumstances." As I walked away, I heard my mother's voice. "No longer performing for onlookers. She'll be back. She always comes back. Where else would she go?" I slid into my car, handed the valet a generous tip, and drove away from the hotel without looking back. In my rearview mirror, I could see them standing in the driveway, looking smaller than they ever had before. The 6-hour drive back to Boston gave me time to process the confrontation. What struck me most was how predictable their behavior had been. How perfectly it confirmed that I had made the right decision. Not once had anyone apologized for excluding me from Christmas. Not once had anyone acknowledged my feelings. Their concern was entirely self-interested, focused on the restoration of financial support rather than the repair of our relationship. As I crossed the state line into Massachusetts, I felt something I hadn't expected: compassion. My family was trapped in patterns they couldn't see, dependent on dynamics that ultimately harmed everyone involved. I had escaped. They remained caught in a cycle of emotional manipulation and financial dependency. This realization didn't make me want to resume financial support. Instead, it reinforced my conviction that stopping was the most compassionate action for everyone. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling their destructive behavior, even when they hate you for it. By the time I reached my apartment in Boston, my phone had stopped its constant notification alerts. Either they had given up for the moment, or they were regrouping for a new strategy. Either way, I had won myself some peace. I unpacked my overnight bag, hanging up the outfit I had carefully selected for Christmas Day with my family. Now unworn, the wrapped presents remained in my trunk, their intended recipients having demonstrated they didn't deserve them. As I settled into my own space, surrounded by the life I had built for myself, I realized I no longer felt rejected or excluded. I felt liberated. The door that had closed in my face had actually opened a new path. One where I valued myself enough to walk away from those who didn't. 1 week after the Christmas door closing incident, I sat in Taylor's warm kitchen, surrounded by her family for their annual New Year's Day brunch. Her parents had always treated me with kindness, but this year felt different. When Taylor had explained what happened with my family, her mother had hugged me fiercely and said, "Well, you're definitely family here." The contrast between this genuine welcome and my blood relative's rejection couldn't have been starker. Here, conversation flowed easily, with everyone showing interest in each other's lives. Questions were asked out of genuine curiosity, not as preludes to requests for money or favors. When I offered to help with dishes, my assistance was appreciated, not expected or taken for granted. "You seem different," Taylor observed as we carried plates to the kitchen. "More relaxed." "I feel different," I admitted. "Lighter." Over the past week, I had maintained my digital boundaries with my birth family. The auto responses remained in place, and I checked messages only once daily, preserving my mental health while staying informed about the fallout. That fallout had been significant. Through brief, factual emails from my father, I learned that the family home had indeed faced utility shutoffs. The power company had required a new account setup and deposit. The water had been temporarily disconnected. The internet provider had demanded payment of past due amounts before restoring service. Michael's leased sports car had been repossessed 3 days after Christmas, an event apparently witnessed by several neighbors, causing considerable embarrassment. Rachel had faced declined cards at a post-Christmas sale, leaving a cart of merchandise at the register. Mom had been forced to apply for a part-time position at the local library to help cover household expenses, her first job in over 30 years. These consequences triggered moments of guilt that I discussed openly with Dr. Keller during our first session of the new year. "It's natural to feel responsible for their discomfort," she assured me. "You've been conditioned to believe their welfare is your responsibility. But ask yourself, are you causing harm, or are you allowing natural consequences to occur?" "Natural consequences," I replied after consideration. "I'm not punishing them. I'm just no longer protecting them from the results of their own choices." "Exactly. And how are you feeling about your own life, separate from concerns about them?" The question made me pause. How was I feeling? Better than I had in years, actually. I had redirected the mental and emotional energy previously consumed by family drama into areas of my life I had neglected. I had signed up for a cooking class I had been interested in for months. I had resumed my morning yoga practice, abandoned due to constant early calls from family members with emergencies. I had reconnected with college friends besides Taylor, people I had gradually lost touch with as family obligations consumed my free time. Most significantly, I had begun researching a trip to Japan, a dream destination I had repeatedly deferred because the money always seemed needed elsewhere. Now, the funds previously directed to my family's expenses were being rerouted to my own joy and growth. "I'm rediscovering myself," I told Dr. Keller. "Parts of me that got buried under family expectations and obligations. It's like finding old friends." January brought another unexpected development. My boss called me into her office, not for a reprimand as my conditioned anxiety initially suggested, but for praise. "Your client satisfaction ratings have increased dramatically over the past month," she noted. "And you've brought in 3 new major accounts. Whatever changes you've made in your approach, they're working." I hadn't consciously changed my professional approach, but I realized the energy previously drained by family drama was now available for my career. Without late-night calls about Michael's latest crisis or Rachel's financial demands, I was sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and bringing my full self to work. By mid-January, My father began sending emails that differed in tone from his earlier factual updates. He expressed interest in rebuilding our relationship and suggested a fresh start. Reading between the lines, I sensed my mother's influence. The strategic softening intended to regain access to my financial support. I responded politely but firmly, stating that any new relationship would need to be built on mutual respect and without financial entanglements. The emails stopped after that clarification. Rachel took a different approach, sending a lengthy message that veered between accusation and apology, ultimately suggesting that family helps family and proposing a reasonable monthly stipend to help them transition to independence. I did not respond. Michael surprised me with an actual handwritten letter delivered to my office. His usually messy handwriting had been carefully controlled, the letter formally structured like a business proposal. He acknowledged his financial dependence had been unhealthy and outlined a plan to become self-sufficient, requesting a one-time loan to get back on my feet. The letter showed more self-awareness than I had expected from him, though the financial request revealed he still hadn't fully grasped the fundamental change in our relationship. I wrote back, declining the loan but offering to review his resume and provide career counseling if he was serious about independence. He never replied. As January turned to February, the frequency of contact attempts from my family decreased. Social media provided occasional glimpses into their adaptation. Mom posted about the rewards of rejoining the workforce at the library. Rachel shared an uncharacteristically modest Valentine's Day celebration with her husband. Michael's profile showed a used compact car replacing the repossessed luxury vehicle, with a caption about living within my means. These changes stirred complicated emotions. Part of me felt proud of their steps towards self-sufficiency, while another part remained wary of being drawn back into unhealthy patterns. I discussed these feelings openly with my expanding circle of friends, people who validated my boundaries while acknowledging the complexity of family relationships. On Valentine's Day, a holiday I usually spent working late to avoid the emphasis on romantic relationships, Taylor insisted I join a group dinner with several of her friends. There, I met Daniel, a landscape architect with kind eyes and a thoughtful manner. Our conversation flowed easily, touching on everything from favorite hiking trails to 19th century poetry. When he asked for my number at the end of the evening, I surprised myself by giving it without hesitation. Our first date the following weekend marked another milestone in my transformation. For years, dating had been a low priority, squeezed between work commitments and family emergencies. Now, I found myself fully present, enjoying the simple pleasure of connecting with someone who seemed genuinely interested in knowing me, not for what I could provide, but for who I was. By March, 3 months after the Christmas rejection, my life had developed a new rhythm. Work remained important, but no longer dominated my existence. Friendships flourished with the time and energy I could now invest in them. Weekly dinners with Taylor's family provided the warm family atmosphere I had always craved. My growing relationship with Daniel added a dimension of possibility I hadn't allowed myself to imagine before. My apartment, once primarily a place to sleep between work and family obligations, became a true home. I painted the living room a warm terracotta, a color I had always loved but thought too bold. I bought art that spoke to me rather than matching the neutral decor. I planted an herb garden on my small balcony, finding unexpected joy in nurturing growing things. The transformation wasn't just external. Internally, I noticed subtle but significant shifts. The constant anxiety that had been my companion for decades began to fade. The reflexive checking of my phone for family emergencies diminished. The habit of putting my needs last slowly gave way to healthy self-prioritization. Most importantly, I stopped seeing myself through my family's distorted lens. The narrative that I was somehow difficult, less worthy of love, obligated to prove my value through financial support, that damaging story began to lose its power. In its place grew a new understanding of myself as inherently valuable, worthy of respect and genuine connection. When Taylor's family invited me to join their Easter celebration, her mother handed me a card along with my Easter basket. Inside was a simple message that brought tears to my eyes. Some family we're born into. Some family we choose. Thank you for being part of ours. In that moment, surrounded by people who had chosen to include me, who valued me without conditions or expectations, I realized the true meaning of family had nothing to do with DNA and everything to do with how we treat each other. The door that had closed in my face on Christmas Eve had actually opened the way to this understanding. Sometimes rejection is actually redirection to where we truly belong. 1 year after being told I wasn't family, I stood in my newly purchased townhouse, surveying the space being transformed for my first holiday gathering. A Douglas fir filled the corner of my living room, decorated with ornaments collected during my travels throughout the year. The kitchen counters held ingredients for recipes I had perfected in cooking classes. The dining table, extended to its full length, awaited the friends who had become my chosen family. The previous 12 months had brought more changes than I could have imagined that snowy night in the hotel room. Some changes were external and visible, like my promotion to senior financial advisor or the healthy relationship I had built with Daniel. Others were internal and more profound, like my newfound ability to set boundaries without guilt or my deepened understanding of what constitutes genuine connection. My relationship with my birth family had evolved in unexpected ways. The complete financial separation I had initiated remained firmly in place, creating space for new dynamics to emerge. My mother had made several attempts at reconciliation, each following a predictable pattern. First came the pretense that nothing significant had happened, just a misunderstanding that should be forgotten. When that failed, she tried guilt, invoking family obligation and her advancing age. Finally, when neither approach worked, she reluctantly acknowledged that her behavior had been hurtful, though she stopped short of taking full responsibility. Our current relationship consisted of occasional emails and rare, brief phone calls that remained civil but distant. She had adapted to her part-time job and reduced circumstances with grudging resilience, finding unexpected satisfaction in her work at the library. While she never explicitly apologized for the Christmas Eve rejection, her demeanor had softened as she realized I would no longer be manipulated by emotional tactics. Rachel surprised me the most. After 6 months of silence following my financial withdrawal, she reached out with an email that showed genuine reflection. The loss of financial support had forced her to confront patterns in her own marriage and parenting that mirrored our family of origin. She had started therapy, recognizing how she prioritized appearance over authenticity. While our relationship remained tentative, our communications had gained a honesty previously absent. Michael's journey took the most dramatic turn. The repossession of his luxury car became a pivotal moment, a public embarrassment that forced him to examine his life choices. After cycling through several minimum wage jobs, he enrolled in community college courses in computer programming, discovering an aptitude that had previously gone uncultivated. Our communication remained limited, but I observed his progress from a distance with cautious optimism. My father, perhaps the most emotionally withdrawn member of the family, made the most direct attempt at amends. 6 months after the financial separation, he invited me to lunch when he was in Boston for a conference. Over sandwiches at a quiet cafe, he spoke more openly than he had in my entire life. "I failed you," he said simply. "I saw how your mother treated you differently, and I did nothing. It was easier to stay silent than to create conflict." His acknowledgement, while late, helped heal a wound I had carried since childhood. We established a tentative relationship based on monthly phone calls, carefully avoiding discussions of money or my mother's opinions. My policy toward all family members remained consistent. I would engage in relationships based on mutual respect, but financial support was permanently off the table. Some accepted this new reality better than others, but all were forced to recognize that I was no longer the family bank. As I arranged glasses on my holiday buffet table, I reflected on the deeper lessons of the past year. The Christmas Eve rejection that had felt so devastating had actually been the catalyst for profound growth and authentic happiness. By losing what I thought was family, I had found what family truly meant. Dr. Keller had helped me understand that my compulsion to financially support my family despite their emotional neglect stemmed from a core belief that I needed to earn love, that my inherent self wasn't enough. Breaking free from financial entanglement forced me to confront and rewrite that belief. My new circle of friends demonstrated daily that genuine connection didn't require purchase. Taylor's family included me in their traditions without expectation of return. Daniel valued my company and perspective, not my financial status. My therapy group provided support through shared vulnerability, not transaction. Even my professional life reflected this transformation. Where I once sought validation through overwork and achievement, I now found satisfaction in helping clients develop healthy relationships with money, often sharing my own journey as appropriate. The doorbell rang, announcing the arrival of my first guests. Taylor and her parents entered bearing dishes and gifts, followed by friends from work, my therapy group members, neighbors from my new community. Daniel arrived last, carrying the wine we had selected together and wearing the sweater I had given him for his birthday. As everyone settled into my home, conversation and laughter filling the spaces that had once echoed with my solitude, I experienced a moment of profound gratitude. The rejection that had seemed so cruel had actually been a disguised blessing, forcing me to rebuild my life on a foundation of authentic connection rather than obligation. Later, as we gathered around the table for dinner, Taylor proposed a toast. To chosen family, she said, raising her glass, and to Samantha, who had the courage to choose herself first. The warmth that filled me had nothing to do with the wine and everything to do with the knowledge that I had finally found my true place of belonging. The most valuable gift I ever gave myself wasn't financial security, but the courage to say no to those who only valued what I could give them, and yes to those who valued me for simply being me. In doing so, I discovered that family isn't defined by blood or obligation, but by respect, reciprocity, and genuine care. As we move into a new year, I want to ask you, my viewers, have you ever had to make a difficult choice between self-respect and family expectations? Has rejection ever led you to something better than what you lost? Share your experiences in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that sometimes the most painful doors closing lead to the most beautiful openings. Thank you for being part of my journey, and remember, you are worthy of relationships that honor your whole self, not just what you can provide.